could Star Wars be turned around if Disney Lucasfilm decided to move forward with a new separate continuity that didn't include the sequel trilogy movies? That's an idea that's been floated around recently, and I think it's possible that if this was done, it could lead to a full-blown Star Wars reboot. I want to take a look at this article from That Park Place. It's linked below if you want to read it in full. Exclusive. Disney executives reportedly ready to reset Star Wars and splinter the sequel trilogy. Now, I'm not sure how much stock I would put in this at the present time, but as I've said many times before, Star Wars fans and audiences generally connect more with the original trilogy, and the recent direction of the franchise has led to a situation where there's just a lot of apathy towards the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu film. So a pivot back to the origins of the franchise might be a very good idea. It says, in a recent focus group of teens conducted by entertainment industry expert Matt Belloni at Puck News, it's obvious why the Mandalorian and Grogu box office projections continue to portend the lowest opening weekend for a Star Wars movie ever for ticket sales. When asked about Star Wars, the teens didn't debate storylines, characters, or upcoming films. Instead, the conversation was brief and dismissive. I like the old stuff, but the new stuff, nah, I'm not too excited for The Mandalorian. I never watched it personally, one teen said, and another didn't even bother sugarcoating it. Anything that came out after I was born isn't that great. The only semi-positive mention came with a caveat. Star Wars has been quiet lately, but I liked Andor a lot, another added, before the conversation quickly moved on. Yeah, I think it goes to show that even young audiences value the original saga more than they do the newer productions in the franchise. And I'm not surprised. The original trilogy made a far bigger cultural impact than anything that has come since then. And I would include even the prequel trilogy movies. It says the evidence that Disney has made a 180 for the franchise internally is everywhere. The May the 4th merchandise, all original trilogy stuff. The Fortnite Star Wars special event, mostly original trilogy, with some Dave Filoni cartoon skins thrown in, and no, nobody is buying a Captain Phasma costume. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, the timeline has been shifted, and now the sequel trilogy basically exists as a single ride, while the original trilogy characters are everywhere. And I think that's about time. George Lucas, Luke, Leia, and Han roam the land. John Williams' music finally blasts over speakers, and the chances this comes to Florida's Disney World version very soon is about as close to 100% as you can get. So it looks like Disney's direction for Star Wars might be showing signs of change because of how it's altering its Galaxy's Edge theme park. It's becoming less centered around the characters and stories from the sequel trilogy and more focused on the original trilogy characters. And the article discusses how the world between worlds, the extra-dimensional universe as part of the Force, might be the reason for this reimagining. So will this have a larger impact on the future chronology, the future timeline, the future canon for the Star Wars franchise? According to a source close to Lucasfilm, we now believe that the final season of Ahsoka, as confirmed in recent interviews, is Filoni's last chance to get ratings for this era of Star Wars. If it does not get ratings, the plan told to us is that there will be a mini project to wrap up the Mandoverse and pivot back to the original Star Wars characters. More importantly, we have been informed that Disney executives have impressed upon Dave Filoni that the sequel trilogy needs to be branched off. Well, this is very interesting. This is very interesting if it turns out to be the case. And it sounds like using a kind of multiverse type plot device, but in a good way. So this would be to consign the sequel trilogy to a separate continuity. But if the plan is to move back to the original movie characters, how would they really do that at this point? How would they do that? I mean, Carrie Fisher is dead, and I doubt that Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill will ever return to their roles. So really, when you think about it, what advantage would this be to the Star Wars franchise? And it says the way to do that, we believe, based on conversations, is for Ahsoka to interact with the World Between Worlds in a way that makes the Kathleen Kennedy sequel trilogy exist in its own timeline, separate from the rest of Star Wars. So they've done this with Star Trek, with the Kelvin timeline movies, as you know. And they're kind of doing this as well, it seems, with the MCU and what they plan to do after Doomsday and post Secret Wars. They're consigning all these franchises using the multiverse and sort of soft rebooting and maybe hard rebooting, I don't know. But it looks like all these franchises are being changed, being altered using some multiverse magic. We have been told more details, but are refraining from providing the info in order to not spoil possible future stories. Well, look, I'll conclude by saying this. As much as I'd love for the deaths of the original three main characters to be undone, I think it's more likely that what would happen in the future is that Star Wars will simply be completely rebooted right back to the very beginning, and that the original characters will be recast and that they'll start all over again. That's essentially what was done with the Star Trek franchise, with the Kelvin timeline films that began back in 2009. And yeah, in the end, they fizzled out. I don't think it really worked. And most fans, to them, the original actors will always be the original characters, and they can't really be replaced. And I think that's going to be the case with Star Wars. Would Star Wars fans really accept their favorite characters being recast with different actors and starting the saga all over again from the beginning? I'm not sure any fans really want to see that. So, yeah. That's going to do it for today, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Computing Forever and remember to hit that notification bell to be notified of future updates on the channel. Hit that like button, share the video out there. Take care, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.